locks on the doors, chains stretched across all the entries to the inside.
Jim, what I tell people is that performance-based standards is a program that allows facilities like the Long Creek Youth Development Center to measure what they do day in and day out and use this information to improve the conditions of confinement for kids in this program.
I used to be addicted to drugs. Amy's been through a rough time. Amy's seen a lot more than you or I have seen.
Performance-based standards is really about setting marks that the staff have to achieve with kids if they're going to be successful in rehabilitating these youths.
When I first started here, it was rough, it was scary.
One of the strengths of performance-based standards is it asks the facilities twice a year to conduct a climate survey of the children and the youth. And one of the questions that has been most helpful in the survey is, do you fear for your safety?
Do you feel safe here?
Yes. And with all the training and with the new program, I feel safer, the kids feel safer. You deal with them in a different manner. It's not like, hey, you, get out of there. It's more, hey, come sit down, talk to me about that. My coach, Miss Woods, has always been there for me, no matter what. I'm so proud of her. Amy is a very wonderful young lady, and she is going to be something when she's out of here. I give her 2 thumbs up.
In my over 30 years in juvenile corrections, the Performance-Based Standards Project is really the most exciting event I've ever been involved in, because I really feel that it is able to make a staff feel better about the work they do on a day-to-day basis. It is able to really change the lives of many of these kids, and in some instances, it's able to save the life of a youth.
Hundreds of kids that are growing salmon to plant in this creek. And what do they hope for? They hope for a return of those salmon so that they can successfully spawn and then go forward in a sustained way.
So when I first met you, it was at our first community meeting. You were the ones who understood the connection of what we were trying to do with the stormwater with the downstream impacts to the salmon stream.
Before there was urbanization, before there was a city, when stormwater would fall on the ground, it would infiltrate into the soil, go down into the groundwater layer, and slowly make its way to a creek system and recharge that creek system with very cool, clean water.
An area becomes more and more developed. There's more rooftops, more roads, everything's more impervious. There's less water that can actually infiltrate into the soil, and then the water reaches our creeks much faster and has a negative impact on the stream channel and the biota that lives there.
Virtually every drop of water that falls on the street behind me is conveyed into the stream immediately.
C Street is designed in such a way so that the water runs off of the street, runs off of the sidewalks, and enters one of the swale systems that you see behind me.
Construction of a swale in a natural system essentially provides space for water to naturally be processed by the soil.
When you have a healthy soil system with the microorganisms that live there, those microorganisms can help break down whatever those pollutants are. So you've created a system that can do the treatment in a self-sustaining sort of way.
Way below, a good 18 to 24 inches of material is there to absorb that rainwater just like a forest soil does.
We cut runoff from that street by 98%.
And so although from a conservative design standpoint, it shouldn't have worked, it is.
To know that the oils from the cars and the pesticides coming off the lawns are getting filtered out and not shooting down the stream.
And the kids will come down and they'll say, that's the salmon that we raised in grade 5 when I was in Viewlands Elementary School. That's my salmon. And it gives them that feeling of continuity and hope for life. And I think we need that.
CityStat's an innovation because the combination of the customer service model of the 311 center with the performance measurement of CompStat. That had never been applied across all of the city departments.
Every week we get together, we try to come up with a list of issues that we want to discuss at the upcoming city staff meetings. We brief them, we do some analysis, we go out and do some field visits and site visits, and then we bring it back and we figure out what would make for a good meeting.
The hot seat feeling is good because it keeps me as well as my staff on our toes. We know that we're going to have to go in before the mayor and his cabinet and defend our performance.
Well, I think that your progressive department heads really enjoy the opportunity to come in and talk to the mayor every 2 weeks, explain what their challenges are, what their successes are. But if you're a bad manager, this isn't a place that you necessarily want to come so often.
We have learned how to use data about our community to work through the city systems to get more services for our community.
We're not going to be satisfied until it's the best big city in America for kids to grow up. I mean, that's our goal. This is not a dress rehearsal. We're here now, and we're going to do the most we can as quickly as we can to make our city the greatest city in America.
The National Library of Medicine is the biggest medical library in the world. Congress was for some years anxious that patients, their constituents, know about what experiments were going on with, particularly in the areas of dangerous and life-threatening diseases. So what kind of trials were there, and could they get into them?
ClinicalTrials.gov is intended to be a comprehensive resource of clinical trials for serious or life-threatening conditions. And the site is unique not only because it is as comprehensive as it is, and we continue to add more information to it, but I think also because every design decision was based on the fact that we were trying to serve the public. First and foremost, patients, families, and other members of the public.
Breast conservation is definitely the result of a clinical trial, and thousands of women have their breasts today because of that. And survival. You know, clinical trials were what told us that hormones work well in breast cancer.
ClinicalTrials.gov was extremely valuable. You know, I wouldn't have known where to go, who to contact, what the numbers were, without finding all that information in one site.
The other important part about the database is that it lists all private and public clinical trials, which is a huge issue these days because 80% of all clinical trials are done by private clinical trial organizations.
You've got to be awfully grateful to the people who have participated in the trials that say tamoxifen is now preventative of cancer recurrence. Well, somebody had to discover that, and that required women being willing to participate.
I've had AIDS for 23 years. I would not be alive if I didn't have access to clinical trials, because in the early days there weren't any drugs. The only drugs that were available were experimental ones in clinical trials.
Patients are often, particularly those who are suffering from serious or life-threatening conditions, are desperate for Knowledge and information. And if I've been able to play a small part in that, then I feel very good about having done that.
There's a gate and a fence.
So the assistant sheriff and I went and said to the sheriff, we have this new proposal.
So how this all started was Sonny and other staff people came to me with this idea.
We want to open up one dormitory using the principles of restorative justice.
Restorative justice is basically about repairing the harm that was caused by crime.
Their concept was we'd take 60 violent men, put them in a dormitory with counselors, and then develop some sort of program. And I'm going, I don't want a riot on my hands.
And he couldn't believe it. God bless our sheriff. And I think he said something to the effect of, are you crazy?
But as we talked about it more, it made sense.
January 20th, 1986. I awakened out of a sound sleep. The only thing that I could think of was my little grandson, little Jesse.
Behind me is the RSVP dormitory. They're trying to give these men an understanding that the violent act does not end when the violent act is over, but that the pain, the financial burden, the impact on families can live on for years and years.
And as he pushed the door open, we could see two adults lying on the living room floor. He stepped over their bodies, touched Nancy's elbow, said, "She's gone." Nancy had more than 50 stab wounds before she finally bled to death. My husband, meantime, had run back to the bedroom to see if our little 23-month-old grandson, little Jesse, see if he was okay. He told the police while he was being interrogated that he slapped the kid a few times and told him to shut up. The kid wouldn't shut up. So Richard's answer to that problem was to take him out of his crib, take him over to a doorway where there was light, throw him down on the floor, and proceed to stab him 56 times.
Yeah, I know Jean's story is very powerful, and what I want to make sure we don't is just separate ourselves from it, the fact that, oh my God, I've never done anything that brutal.
Hearing stories such as Jean's make me become more aware and realize that my actions do impact a lot of people.
Who hurt your heart?
Richard didn't just take Nancy and Jesse and Paul. Richard took my life too. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Who stole your heart? One day you will find it.
I measure this by the results. I rely heavily on a study done by Dr. James Gilligan, who has studied this program for 5 years. And he has shown that if a man is in our program for 4 months, he is 80% less likely to come back to jail for a violent act.
I'm very sorry about that.